Welcome to the social-engineer.org podcast number 131. I'm really excited about this particular guest. I say that every month, and I know you guys probably think I'm not being real, but I am. Chani Simms is her name. She gave an amazing TED Talk all about some initiatives that she has, just struggling as a woman in the InfoSec industry, that she came up through the ranks from Sri Lanka to London to now in 2019 being labeled as one of the top 50 most influential women in this industry. Her attitude about things is just so positive. She's so amazing. And I thought, what a great guest. And wait till you hear some of the advice she has for us, some of the things that she has to say about how we can all support each other and become better in this industry. So, man, let's stop yapping about this. Let me take a quick pause and get her on the show. Are back on the show with our guest, Chani Simms. Wonderful to have you here. How are you today?
Hi, I'm good. Thanks. How are you?
I'm great. Really, really excited to have you on. After I saw your TEDx talk, I was just fascinated by some of the things you spoke about there, which we'll put a link to the show notes. But I think what would be nice is for everyone listening is to kind of hear a little bit about who are you and how you got into the InfoSec industry.
Yeah, so I'm originally from Sri Lanka. I grew up there and I came to UK to do my higher studies. So I did my computer science degree because I wanted to get into computing and started my career at IBM as IBM engineer. And then I was doing lots of infrastructure work, IBM x86 systems, which we used to call them Blade Center System X stuff. A lot of big servers, Blade Centers. And I started with configuring those and then installing them, doing the whole data center process, managing data centers to then configuring solutions to designing them, and went into virtualization, system management, Citrix, VMware kind of things. And then I felt like every project that I've been in, I was doing a lot of migration projects and things like that for IBM customers. And I felt I need to move on from my career, and I was looking for things. And one of the frustrations I had was that security was kind of the NQA item. Always, you build an environment and then let's do a pen test, and then everything falls apart because the pen test failed and you messed up. I got accidentally dragged into starting a business. So that's how I co-founded Meta Defense Labs.
Accidentally started a business? That sounds like an interesting experience. I haven't had that one yet.
It was one of those things that, one of my colleagues was saying, we're doing this for big companies. Why don't we start our own company and do it the way we want it to be, secure by design solutions. So that's how we started Meta Defense Labs, and we wanted to do infrastructure securely and also offer pen testing. So we started as a pen testing company. And I was, out of the three co-founders, I was the one who was more like the salesy person and, person who talks to people more than the other two, I should say. And I ended up managing the business. So that's how I became managing director for Meta Defense Labs. But it was a journey because I was also a techie and I was never a salesperson. And, I had to go through a phase to learn how to talk tech to business. I never learned how to sell, though. That was something that never happened to me.
I think a lot of us tech people are really bad at that.
Yeah.
I am terrible. I mean, we just had that discussion before we recorded, right? Like, I'm one of those guys like, that sounds like a nice place. Here, I'll go for next to nothing.
Exactly.
My COO is looking at me like, I'm going to punch you right now.
Yeah, I need one of those people to come and kick me in the back and say, look, you need to be selling. But yeah.
You and I should never negotiate a deal together because we'll be like giving it away. No, you take more.
Yeah, that's how I end up a lot of deals, end up doing lots of free work or underpaid. But it's a passion. So I think when I got to security, it was like my DNA. I was like, oh my God, this is like the stuff that naturally comes out, and I loved it. So I had to it was looking at things in a different side, pretty much. Yes, you always talk about how to do things in a secure manner when you're building IT infrastructures. But then being just a security person, it was quite different because you're looking at risk and how do you enable the IT guys to do the work without being the party pooper, sort of, And that was quite fun. So I went into training into different skills. I wanted to explore the hacking side of things, the forensic side, because I was so fascinated in forensics. That's something I've never done. So I had to go and train myself to try out different forensics courses, training, to see what it's like. And then I kind of realized, okay, this is a challenging path. And someone put me off with saying, okay, if you're doing forensics, you should be able to go and present evidence in the courts and they will rip you off and all that. I said, okay, maybe not. So that was kind of the part, you learn to hack and then try to hack the hackers and, try the forensic side of things. And I tried lots of different courses. Whatever that I grabbed hold of, I learned. I did a lot of self-study, learning new techniques and different things and trying out different domains. And now I kind of work more around auditing side of things. So the company also grew and then changed into becoming a Cyber Essentials certification body. We had to apply our own things to the own company and then getting the standards and processes built. So there was a lot of business elements to it as well. And then talking to leaders, C-level executives. Then I ended up doing lots of security audits and I quite like it. And I also went into studying a lot of risk management practices, training, all these things. And now what I do is I work as a virtual CISO. So I got about, let me see, about 3 or 4 jobs at the moment, hats at least. So I do the management side of it a little bit. I got another director who's helping with that. I'm also engaged as a principal consultant for a large multinational company who does networking equipment and training. So I'm helping with them, working with them to do a cyber curriculum. And I'm also volunteering for CISO platform, which I founded. I'll talk about it later on. And that's what I talk about on my TEDx talk. And I'm also working as a virtual CISO for a few SMBs. That's something I started a couple of years back. And I really like it because I don't think I'll ever like to go as a CISO for one company. I love the virtual CISO element because I get to work with different teams, different cultures, different environments, industries, and it's so good because you get to see how humans behave in different ways. Sort of.
Yeah, and that's got to be a fascinating part of that job.
Yeah, it is quite fascinating and working with different people. When it's good, it's really nice. I like it. And I have a plan that I've developed, a CISO, virtual CISO program, and it takes them through different stages and improving maturity. And it seems to be working really well. So I'm getting more and more clients coming to me asking, can you be my virtual CISO and also mentor their staff? So I don't just go in and say, hey, let's do this. I do a cultural transformation within the organization. So the next time I meet them, some people say, Chani, I'm like you. I go and ask questions when people collect my data. And that's the best compliment you get. People are being paranoid and behaving with cyber conscious attitude.
So I want to back up though, way back, when you said you decided you were, in Sri Lanka and you decided to come to London to start studying for this industry.
Yeah.
Was in Sri Lanka, and this is just me not knowing much about the culture there.
Yeah.
Was it common for women to be in the tech related industries in Sri Lanka?
No, that was my get out plan.
Let's hope your mom doesn't listen to this podcast, right?
No, it was funny. It's a culture where you're not taken seriously if you're not a doctor or a lawyer or engineer, right?
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, at that time, it was like, if you're a doctor, everyone in my family wanted me married to a doctor because I couldn't be a doctor. And then, okay, let's get married to a doctor. I'm like, okay, back off. And then and there's if you're an engineer, then yes, oh yeah, you're an engineer. And then if you're an accountant, that's also good. It's that kind of attitude, but it was changing. And my father thought I would be an accountant, good accountant. And then he got me, as soon as I finished my A-levels, he got me registered into doing chartered accounting. And I purposely miserably failed. I was a rebel back then. I still am, I think. I failed because I had to prove a point saying I don't want to do this. And then I started BCS in there and it was just not really working for me. And then I did AS400 and then some IBM because it's just like I wasn't getting the real feel of it. And I thought, and everyone's judging you, oh, you're not doing a reputable job or whatever. And I just didn't like the whole thing. So I thought, okay, I need to get out of this whole thing and do a computer science degree, because I found out that if I want to join IBM, I've always wanted to join IBM. In my TEDx talk, I talk about this billboard, and there was an IBM billboard. And I thought, if I want to, then I need to have a degree. So that's why I managed to convince my dad, saying, okay, I want to go and do a degree, and I want to do a computing degree. So that's kind of how I ended up in UK. And he supported that. He said, okay, if you want to do that, then you failed accounting now, so you're not good at it. So he let me come in, and he supported me to do that. And that's how I ended up in UK. And I was supposed to go back. I still haven't. I do go there quite a lot because we have an office in Sri Lanka. And before the COVID happens, we were going there for like every few months to do work. So we got clients there as well as here. And I really like that, because it's just like I live in two countries now because I got home there and here, and it's quite nice.
I mean, you think about that journey, and then in 2019, you were labeled as one of the 50 most influential women in cybersecurity. So
I don't know how
to
that
go
happened.
from, yeah, well, it must be you did like your business that you maybe mistakenly started. You also stumbled into another pile of awesomeness and became one of these very influential women in this industry. So, I mean, it's just like kind of a silly question, like, what does that feel like? But I mean, what has that done for you when you realize that you have this influence power on a much needed part of this industry? We do not have enough women in our industry. So how does that influence you?
It was a lot of frustrations. I mean, during my 17 years career, that I've always been the only woman in a team and teams. And I've had sometimes occasions where people look at me like, what the hell are you doing here? When I go into a data center, and then people looking at you funny and saying funny things. So I always felt that. And then also, I've been bullied in the past in some of my jobs, and I didn't like it. And there were times that I almost went into kind of depression, and I had to make a choice, conscious decision, thinking, am I going to think about this awful experience and dwell on it and, be miserable, or am I going to just forget it, dust myself and move on, and then do something, be the change, be something different. And that's kind of what led me to doing this. And that's why I started CISO as well, because I felt there is a massive gap in diversity in the industry, not just gender, but in all sort of areas. And then there's the skill gap, and then there's a leadership gap. Often people behave the way they behave because lack of confidence, lack of self-esteem and ego, and all these, the backgrounds they come in, the upbringing as well. And I thought, what can I give my younger self, 10 years younger self, you know, if I want to get into, what can I teach myself if I was 10 years younger? Then that's how I designed Shizi. So, boot camp, 5 days, and train them and mentor them, coach them, and also give that knowledge to know what they need to know around cybersecurity. So it was started as a project. That's what I talk about in TEDx talk. So I'm not going to go into too much. And it was so successful. I mean, I thought I'm going to be failing and losing all the money I invested, but it didn't. It was so successful. And when I first heard about this, back to your question about influential, it was last year. My father died that month, and I was in Sri Lanka, and I was devastated. I was in pieces pretty much. I didn't know, how to find myself. And one night I was sat on my bed, and I got this phone call from America, and this was an American number. And suddenly I thought, okay, I'll answer. I normally don't answer my phone calls because often when I get a phone call, it's a scam. So I don't really go for it. And then I answered my phone. I was Grant Lecky, and he said, oh, you've been nominated as like global top influencers in the world. And it's for security and fire. And then you're number one on the one to watch category. I was like, what? And he just had to repeat again. I said, okay, I just lost my dad this week, and I don't know what it means to me because I couldn't really make it out. And then I said, thank you. And he said he's going to send me some details. So I did receive it. And when I looked at it, I was like, oh, wow. I was really honored. And, it was such a nice experience. And at the same time, it was just before that, I think, yeah. I got that call before my father died, a week after. And then when my father was in the hospital, I got an email from something else as well. And then I got to tell him, and he was very proud and he was happy. And So it was just that so many mixed emotions at the time. I wasn't bothered about awards or anything, and my company was award at the same time, at the same month. And last thing in my mind was like thinking about award. It was not the time for me. And I had someone from my team later on go and collect that award because they were having an event in London. It didn't really mean much at the time because I wasn't really thinking about it. And I think for about the next 3 months, I wasn't thinking about any of that, to be honest, because I was just trying to get up and running and recover from that loss. And it was, yeah, so I was just making myself to be like getting myself a lot of work so I don't have to think about the loss and, the sadness. And then I decided, okay, maybe I should take some time and, grasp what I'm going through because it was horrible experience and I was so close to my dad and it was just trying to figure out what the hell is happening. And, when you lose someone you love so much, you feel like they take a part of you with them.
Yeah.
And then later on, I think it was in September when I came back to UK. I was there for about 3 months in Sri Lanka because I had to look after my mom, my family, and came back. And then I was announced the SE Awards, most influential woman, and there was a second one. I was like, that was like really nice because I got to go to the function. It was held at the BT Tower in London, and I met the most amazing female leaders there. And that was such a nice experience. I got to take my husband with me and met all the people I know in the industry but never met some of them. And that event got everyone together and then talk and then we had a good drink and food. It was so nice. I really enjoyed it and I felt like maybe that it was so humble and also to I feel so honored to even think that I've done something to add value to this community and that's exactly what I wanted to do. Part of what I always tell people is try and build eminence, add value to your teams, add value to your community. Otherwise, it's the whole purpose of being a human being is just wasted. And that's kind of where I felt, okay, maybe I'm doing something right. And I felt that, yes, this is good that, people are seeing that I'm adding value and I wanted to do more and I haven't stopped since. So I think that's kind of where I think my purpose is like, how can I add value to myself as well as my team and my community and be better at someone I wasn't yesterday. So that's kind of what it means to me.
And what advice would you give? Because this is such a wow, it's like an emotional story, right? Like you want to be rejoiceful and happy about winning these wonderful things and being awarded this at the same time. Having lost your father must have been a very difficult circumstance and maybe even almost feeling guilty for being happy at that moment. But at the same time, I love that you came to the conclusion that there's something you can do to help the industry and help other women. So what advice would you give if there's a young woman listening to this and saying, I really want to be in this industry, but I'm constantly getting belittled and I'm constantly being told I'm not good enough and I'm constantly being treated just like a lower class person. Like, what advice would you give them to help them be the next you?
I think what I would say is it's everywhere, right? I mean, we talk about, being people bullying you, the racism, all these things. I think we need to think beyond that. I mean, we are in 2020, and I think we need to look at people like they're human beings. If you treat yourself like one, and you should be able to treat others the same way. So, first, you need to look at yourself and think about what you want and how you want to be treated, and then treat the other people the same way. And then also, if someone's treating you in a bad way or in a bad manner and belittling you, then it's their problem, not yours. So if you dwell on it and think about it, and yes, you sometimes get frustrated and angry. I mean, we are all humans, right? So you have your emotions, but I think what you need to master is to be the person you don't like to be, or like to be treated as. Because, say, for example, I've been bullied in the past, and if I be like that person, how am I different, right? If someone slapped me, if I go and back and slap that person back, am I any different? No. So I think what you need to look at is, yes, people will try to let your confidence down and make you feel little or low, but just ignore them. It's their way and it's the way they behave. But if you can be better, just go and reach your goal, have goals and have a plan and focus on that. And any activity you do, think twice, is that going to help your goal? If it's not, then forget it, leave it, and then just move on and then do it. Otherwise, it's just, if you go and do things that you don't want to be doing because other people treated you badly, it's not going to help your cause. And try and add value to the community and your team, because that's what makes you different from others and makes you a better human being, and teach from others. I think I like hanging out with clever people because I get to learn a lot of things and hear nice things as well. But if there's anyone who is like not nice and I don't like the person, I just move away. I just ignore them like a plague.
It's an interesting piece of advice, that last thing you were saying, which is add value to your team. Because sometimes, I don't know if this is your experience in your education and how you see some of the differences in today, is that people, they put a lot of effort into their education, a lot of effort into getting the right knowledge, and then there's almost maybe a sense of entitlement.
Yeah.
Whereas when they come out and they're looking for, how can I continually improve myself and how can I make this team or this project or this company better? It's always those people, at least in my company, there's those people that advance the fastest, that become the most powerful, as opposed to those who are just like, okay, give me.
Yeah.
Those people tend to not last too long.
Guess so, yeah.
So that's an interesting piece of advice. What advice do you give if someone says, well, I don't have any value to give? What can I possibly give to this company? Like someone coming to work for you and all the success you've had and all the wonderful things you've done. And what can I possibly do to add value to Chani and her company?
You can't always think you want to be the best. And, some people look at, okay, if I want to add value, I need to go and get a ton of certifications behind me. And then, yes, then I'm ready to add value. Where's the benchmark, right? You can't. Do you want to be Harvard level or Stanford or Oxford? Where is the benchmark, right? So it's a never. Then you go into that imposter syndrome where, okay, I'm not good enough. I can't do this. I don't look at things like that. You can never be perfect. It's like little things, if you can help, suggest. You may not be right all the time, but you can always talk about it. And maybe, how about if I suggest this? Do you agree? If you're not, no, it's crap. Then move on, go and research and find out and talk to other people. I think that's where you can add value rather than just being saying, oh, I don't know about this topic, therefore don't ask me. I can't add value. Then it's not the way, being diverse and being also looking at things differently, being open-minded, I think really helps. I always tell to my people, like, I am not the cleverest person, and I know that I can be really dumb and do really stupid things. And I know that fact. And it's sometimes scary knowing that you don't know everything because it's where your imposter syndrome comes in. But I always try and little things like, okay, if you have a problem, then maybe break it down to separate it, to see where the problems are, and then try and solve each part at a time, sort of like, little steps, and then work with people and try and give ideas, generate ideas, and see where you get. And then you can then end up with maybe a better solution. So that's kind of how my approach is. I don't look at myself as a really clever person or an intelligent person, but I like learning and exploring things and making mistakes. So, if I make the mistakes faster, then I learn faster.
Let's take a quick break from the show to talk about what's going on in the world of social engineer. Well, if you probably noticed, COVID still rages on, so we don't have much training going on in the live sense for this year. We do have our APSE class, first time ever, going at Black Hat, fully virtual. I got some really unique things up my sleeve for that class. There's still some slots. We're definitely reducing the amount of seats that we'll take for that class. So there's some definite slots there available, but why don't you jump right on and check that out? You can get that at the social-engineer.com site. Go to events, and that will link you right to it. Or you can go directly to the Black Hat page and find our course there. It's Advanced Practical Social Engineering. I'm also really happy to announce by the time this comes out that you can visit humanhackingconference.com. Our HHC 2020 went off amazing this year, and I know everything's up in the air and things are crazy, but in March of 2021 will be our second year of the Human Hacking Conference. I don't even want to tease about what's going on at that conference, but it is out of this world. Just head over to humanhackingconference.com, check out the trainings we have, check out what's going to be happening there. Get signed up, and we'll see you there. It's just going to be an amazing, amazing conference. As always, check out InnocentLivesFoundation.org. Really excited about the work we're doing there. Some really amazing people have joined the team, and we're just doing so many good things, and we can really use your help and support. So spread the message, spread the word, and head over to that site to check it out. Last but not least, give a shout out to Clutch for letting us use their awesome music, and just make sure you check them out. One of the best rock and roll bands on the planet Earth. I think that's about it. Hey, why don't we head back to the show? When you were talking, I had this thought about a really good friend of mine. He's an older gentleman. His name is Tom McIntyre. He's one of the world's best jazz musicians, and he's played with some of the greatest here in the States.
Yeah.
And one time when I was with him, I got a chance to ask him how he became so amazing. Like, how did you become this unbelievable talent that everyone that plays jazz looks up to?
Yeah.
And he said his rule was that no matter who it was, when he met a fellow musician, he asked them for a lesson. He said, even if it was 1 minute, 5 minutes, he said, can you just pick up your instrument and teach me one thing? And I sat there for a second. I thought about it, and I said, but what if the person was worse than you? Like, what if they weren't the same talent? Like, you've been playing for 20 years and they've been playing for 1 year. Like, why would you do that? And he's like, because then I may learn something to not do.
Yeah.
He goes, but it's always a lesson. And I'm like, whoa, it was like so simple, but my mind was a little blown.
Yeah.
And when you were talking, I'm thinking, like, that almost applies here, because it's like, look, you don't have to say, hey, I'm not the smartest person in the room, so I have no value to add here. You don't need to be the smartest person in the room to add value. Sometimes I've had someone on my team who's brand new to this industry ask one question during a team meeting, and that one question sparks a conversation that literally changes the way we're going to do things.
Yeah,
and that's powerful.
That's very powerful. Yeah. Right? I also have learned that so many times, because, sometimes I've had cleverest people coming up with really clever ideas, and then there's the people who would say, yes, I am nothing to do with what you do at, cybersecurity, but completely outside, and come and ask these questions like, it blows your mind. Oh my God, all this time you've been doing this thing right. Like, I'll give you an example. The other day we were running these free sessions around to educate the community around ransomware. And I was running this webinar on Zoom, and then one lady typed this. She's completely new to the industry. She was just outsider, and I was like, ask me, what is patching? I was like, okay. And all this time, we go on about patching, but for outsider, what the hell is patching, right?
Right. Yeah.
So we had to explain what patching was, and it is just sometimes a jargon that we talk, and we don't realize that for an outsider, it's completely a new word and could be a new meaning. And that's why I don't classify. Yes, there are really clever people out there, but you shouldn't always think, oh, you're not clever enough to add value. You can always add value. You can make a cup of tea for somebody, right?
Yeah, you know what? I had this wonderful woman that her and I worked together for years before she moved on to another company, and she was a U.S. Air Force Academy professor, and she was a field-trained psychologist,
right?
And we would do training together. And when it was my day to train, she would go and get me coffee or tea, and when it was her day to train, I would do the same for her. And that's the way we added value. Sometimes there was nothing I could say that would add anything to her training material.
Yeah.
But I could make sure she was hydrated, right? And then, and vice versa. Like, sometimes there was just nothing that she can add because I covered the material, but that's the way we added value to each other. And neither of us looked at that as like demeaning. Like, I'm not going to get, I'm not getting you coffee, you work for me, kind of thing. That was never the thought. It was always, well, we're a team.
Yeah.
So we're supporting each other.
Yeah. And for me and my husband also, he's my biggest mentor, because he's a very technical person. He's a security architect. And a lot of the stuff, when I don't remember things, I always ask. And we have these conversations where, we learn from each other, from our different skill sets and different backgrounds. And that's so far more helpful, useful than like reading a book or listening to somebody talking at you, because you are having a meaningful discussion. And I do the same with a lot of my industry experts that I meet. You see, I'm very chatty on LinkedIn as well, and then I talk to people and I'm engaging with conversation. So that way you can understand how people work and then how they do different things differently, and you learn a lot more from about practical things in life and than just reading a book or sometimes listening and watching something.
And all of this is great, but you're going to hit those people that just don't care about your positive attitude and don't care that you're a kind person, and they just want to be a jerk. And we're all going to have those people. So how do you deal with that? What would be your advice to the young women and young men getting into the industry that may have that imposter syndrome, that may feel like they have nothing to add value? Then they hear something like this and they go, okay, I'm going to do it. And then someone just rips them apart, tells them how dumb they were, tells them that they're not worth it. How do they deal with that? Because sometimes just saying move on is not enough. Some people can't just do that. How do they deal with that?
It's difficult sometimes because you have to really be prepared and have some thick skin. I mean, I've had people, my practice is if someone's picking on me for my personal things like what I wear, I've had that before, what I wear or how I look or things like that. I had a woman one time saying, that's when I put on some weight, come and tell me, maybe it's time to go on a diet now.
Oh, man.
I
Wow.
was like, okay, thank you. And I said to her, maybe you should go and look at yourself in the mirror first and come and tell me that again.
Yeah. Wow. That is so brutal, huh?
Yes. But it is what it is. And I always tell to my team, if someone come and pick you on your personal things, just move away and pick your battles as well. And if it's someone you can tell them off, tell them to go and fly a kite. And don't take them seriously. But if someone come and tell you your work is bad, work is not good enough, then take that seriously, because engage in a conversation and ask how you can improve and ask for feedback, because I always do that. If someone give me feedback on my work, I take that as a very important thing, because that's where you can learn to improve. Don't take things personally, just ask them for feedback. But if they're coming and telling you your work is shit and not give you feedback, then that's their problem, because they're not justifying their behavior. But if someone comes and give you, okay, this is where you can improve, here are suggestions, then take that and have a meaningful conversation, even if it can be confrontational, but you can still have a conversation, ask more questions, and don't be afraid to ask questions. It's sometimes difficult, but ask the question and find out why they're saying this, where they're coming from, why are they making these kind of judgments. You can understand then where the person is coming from and make better decisions and improve your work. If it's really bad, then that's the way to improve, because sometimes
Yeah, I love this advice. I love it.
because we don't know, we think, okay, this is the best we can do, and then someone comes and say, oh, this is not how you do it, and you learn from that, right? So I take that advice, but if someone comes and tell me personal stuff, then I'll be like, I don't care.
And the reason I love that advice is sometimes I think we lump it all together. Like my work, we identify ourselves with our work. So if someone comes up and says, hey, Chris, you're fat, go on a diet, it's easy to take that the same way as, hey, your work wasn't great here.
Mm.
And they're not the same. So that's why I love your advice, because someone coming up and insulting me personally, well, yeah, shut up. I don't really care what you think.
Yeah.
But having the attitude that even if you don't agree, so if you come up and you said, hey, that article you wrote, Chris, I don't really like that, I can be like, well, shut up, Chani, I don't care what you think. Or I love your advice. Like, I can ask you, well, tell me, what didn't you like about it? What could I do to make it better? And at that point, I can then choose to listen or not, right? If you gave me great advice, I could be like, wow, I really see your point there. I should do better next time. Or if you gave me something that was kind of not great, I could just file that and be like, okay,
Yeah.
Thank you for your advice and move on. But I love that mentality of pausing for a second, getting rid of that emotional content, and then asking for that person's advice on how to improve.
Yeah, because sometimes people ask for feedback, and when you give them, they take it personally. And that's where you
Yeah.
hit your ego problems, because you need to forget about your ego, look beyond your egos, and go down and ask, what is it, And sometimes it is good advice, and then sometimes it's good. End of the day, you are the one who make the choices, the decisions, right? So it's good to have lots of feedback from different sides, and then you can make that informed decision as to whether to do something or not. And that's why I think egos are really bad if you have big egos. Sometimes people don't even realize they have egos. That's the biggest problem.
I love this. I do. It's one of the cornerstone foundational parts of being a good social engineer, but let's take it out of that. A good communicator
Hmm.
is being able to suspend your ego. And every time I do a podcast with someone who's really achieved success, And I don't mean that just from the amount of money they make, but like, achieved some level of where people go, wow, you're the best at this, or you're one of the top at this, like you have. Always somewhere in the conversation when I'm asking for them how they got there or give me a piece of advice, it comes back to a similar point, is that you have to be willing to take advice. You got to be willing to get rid of that ego. You got to be willing to really learn how to advance yourself by allowing other people to help you, even if you don't view them as being better than you. And that, to me, it's amazing to have conversations with people from all walks of life, all different parts of the earth, all different cultures, genders, everything, and to have the same piece of advice come out, that it all relates back to that ego suspension. That's fascinating to
Yeah,
me.
it fascinates me to see some people's ego sometimes. And I work in different cultures, and that's where I kind of think, I feel like I want to say something, but then when you do say it, their ego stops them understanding what I'm trying to get at. Sometimes it can be received negatively as well. But if you boil it down, it's all part of not understanding. That's the emotional intelligence side of thing, I think.
Yeah.
Not understanding that actually it's your ego talking, not yourself. And yeah, it's very interesting. I see that in a lot of people. And I always say, if you're willing to give out, dish out, you should also be able to take in.
And a
So
lot of people can't,
can't, yeah.
right? A lot of people can't do that. This is awesome. I think that's like a great way to kind of like say, hey, this is the final point. This is it, right? So I almost like want to I'm going to name the podcast something about this, because I think this is a great topic. I mean, it really does fascinate me. I've been doing this. This is my 131st month
Oh, wow.
of recording podcasts. So I think that's almost a full 11 years,
That's
if I can
awesome.
do the math right. And in that time, whenever I've gotten someone, I've had world leading psychologists, I've had martial artists, I've had actors, I've had rock stars, chefs, comedians, cyber professionals, InfoSec professionals throughout the globe come on, and I get to this point. It's always something about the ego. It's always something about like the way to win at anything
Hmm.
is to really suspend your ego and not to, I've never had someone say, yeah, if you want to win, just tromp on the little guy and step on their throats and then you'll get to the top. Like everyone's always said, like, build your team up, build your people up, look for advice, and you'll succeed. And it's just wonderful to hear it again.
Cool. I'm glad.
So if people want to know more about you, if they want to follow you, you talked about a couple initiatives, especially geared towards helping women become more powerful in this industry. Where can people learn more about you, or where can they follow you and get information about you?
Yeah, so I'm on LinkedIn. So Chani Simms, I'm the only Chani Simms on there, so you can find me easily. Just send a message when you do connect, because I have such problems finding who's a bot and who's a not a bot. And I've got like 600 connections waiting at the moment. It's such a pain to add the people. And because I try to engage with people I connect, and that's why it's very difficult. I don't go and add. So I try and find out who this person is and try and have a conversation, because that's how you make friendships and make new connections. The other platform I'm on Twitter, not very active, but I'm there. Again, Chani Sims. And I'm also on Facebook, not active at all. Yeah, so LinkedIn is the most reachable or professional platform. I like my favorite platform, because I try to stick to limited social media profiles because it's difficult to
Understood. Yeah,
manage.
it's a lot of work.
And CISO is also on LinkedIn. We are more active on LinkedIn on CISO. We are actually running a boot camp next month. I can share the link with you. And it's on the CISO page on LinkedIn as well. And that is to get more women, actually get more people into cybersecurity. It's not, CISO stands for she and he both. That's why S
Mm-hmm.
and
Oh,
H is capital on she. So it's
I
not
love
just
that. So
women's
you have
club.
the, I was wondering about that. I'm glad you brought that up, because it's spelled SHE, but the S and H, for those of you who can't see it, the S and H are capitalized.
Yeah.
So it's
Yeah.
SheCISOExec.org is the website if
Yeah,
you want to
so
check it
she's
out.
CISO executive. That's what it stands for. And it's for she and he both. I don't believe in one gender clubs. I believe you need women and men both to make a difference. And that's
I
why
love that.
we've created a platform. It's an open give back platform to get more people into cybersecurity, not just to be get into cybersecurity, make them to become emotionally intelligent cybersecurity leaders, because we need that leaders in the industry. And we are offering scholarships. So the whole platform concept is that participants get it for free, and you get mentoring, advice, training, all that. And We give scholarships, and mentoring is we have run monthly webinars, which I would like to invite you to. And we have meetups, quarterly meetups. Now it's gone virtual. Now we're doing the virtual meet boot camp in July. We are planning to offer up to 100% scholarships to participants who wants to get in, and we teach them all the domains. It's like a bridging platform. If you don't know where to start, this is where I recommend, because we give a flavor of every domain in cybersecurity. But not just that, we teach leadership, emotional intelligence, design thinking, personal development, building your eminence, all these areas. And it's a very interactive boot camp, 5 days. So
That's beautiful. Sounds like a wonderful initiative.
it's one of those things what I would give to myself. So I'm
Yeah, yeah,
try and make it
yeah.
as fun as possible. And we are trying to do this first time on a virtual platform. So it's going to be fun to see how that goes.
Yeah, that's all new for everyone, huh?
Yeah. So we're looking for speakers as well. If you want to improve your speaking skills and want to record a webinar, get registered, and we give the opportunity for that. And also for industry, if people wants to find jobs, we don't just train people and drop them. We give them mentoring as well as we help them connect with the industry leaders. So you're creating that supportive community. So we are on Slack as well. Oh, I forgot the Slack one. We are on Slack channel, and you can link to register is on the website or the Eventbrite. There's a CISO bootcamp one, and you can register for the community. Yeah, so it's making a lot of noise in the industry and giving back. It's all about giving back and sharing knowledge and supporting each other.
Yeah, we'll put links to all of that in the show notes because this is really, really valuable pieces of information.
Cool.
So the last question I always ask guests before we end is, our listeners love to read, are avid readers, especially now, I would say, with being quarantined, there's probably more reading going on. It doesn't have to be about the topic of our conversation, but do you have a book, or if you can't think of just one, if you have more, but a book that you recommend for people to read?
I got a lot of tech books. I'm not going to talk about those, from your CISP to the hacking stuff. You can find those books. But I think something that I really interested me, this is like a book that I read long time ago, two books. I read Men Are From Mars and Women Are From Venus. This is like
Mm-hmm.
10, 15 years ago I read this book. I really like that. It helped me understand how men behave and men think. So something I recommend.
Interesting.
And that's helped me a lot, because the way we think, the way we behave, the way we manage emotions is completely opposite to men. And that helped me quite a lot in terms of making friendships. If you know me, a lot of my friends are men, and I work with a lot of men. My friends are men, and I get along quite a lot. And it's probably because I also think like that, because I'm very direct and open, and what you see is what you get with me. And I like that. And if someone says, yes, this is black and it's no white, I take that. This is how I hear it. But when it comes to women, we communicate in a different manner. We expect things where men can't read our minds. And that book really helped me to understand. Another book that I again read like 10 years ago was a body language book. It's a definitive book of body language, I think it's called. Very old fashioned. I think nowadays it'll be kind of out of date, but that book really helped me understand, be more intuitive with people.
What was the name of it? The definitive
Book of
book?
Body Language.
Okay.
It's Alan plus Barbara.
I don't think I've had either of those books ever recommended.
Oh, cool. These are nothing to do with cybersecurity or IT.
No, it's wonderful.
Yeah,
I mean, especially in nonverbal communication or understanding how people think, I think that does have a lot to do with every industry, but I've loved recommendations like that.
so I don't know when it was last published. It's still in my bookshelf because I sometimes go and look at it. And there are some terms which are not really relevant nowadays. And it's a starting point if you want to get into that kind of understanding people. It was just a basic book, but I kind of liked it when I read it long time ago. It felt like you can be more intuitive and understand people when you're interacting. And then it also helps you to ask questions, ask the difficult question. I hate judging or assuming things, because that's the worst thing you can do. So if you assume, okay, someone is thinking this, then you be so wrong. And
Mm-hmm.
that's why I always I can be a pain in the ass, because I'll be asking a lot of questions to understand where you're coming from. But at least you're not making false judgments or false
Yep.
assumptions. And that's why I think you should always ask questions before you judge or assume someone by just a little thing that they do or say. And this body language book also helped me to kind of be intuitive around, you know, understanding when people say things. Yeah, those are really non-technical, but the technical books, there are quite a lot of, I don't know where to start. Yeah, I think you can find, there's a lot of industry tech books and podcasts and things
Yeah.
like that. Yeah.
I can't thank you enough. This was a wonderful conversation. It was really, really great to chat with you and wonderful to get to meet you.
You're welcome.
Get to know you a little better. I'm sure we'll be talking more. I'm looking forward to talking about your boot camps and other things. So just thanks for spending some time with us today.
Yeah, thank you very much. And I'll invite you to one of my webinars as well. I think it'll be really good to hear your social engineering side of things.
That would be great. A lot of fun too.
Thank you, Chris.
Another amazing show. Chani is just so phenomenal. I love her positivity and just had a great time chatting with her before the show, during the show, and after. She is just amazing as a person. I can't wait to hear what you guys think about this podcast. So yes, with that, keep in mind, you can communicate with us through Twitter. Me personally, Human Hacker, or corporate SOC Engineer Inc. If you want to talk about Human Hacking Conference, it's SE Village. And if you want Innocent Lives, it's innocent.org. You can check us out on our websites, social-engineer.org, social-engineer.com, humanhackingconference.com, and innocentlivesfoundation.org. I think that's basically all the ways you can get a hold of us. There's just so many great things happening right now and so much positive news to put out there. So check out the sites, check out our Twitter, follow us on LinkedIn or Facebook. We're going to keep putting out some great content. We have a brand new Instagram live channel going every Wednesday now. You can enjoy that. I don't know. There's just so many things to talk about. I can probably keep going, but I'm not gonna. So I can't wait to have our guest on next month. Let me know what you think about our new podcast format, and let me know what you think about this podcast. And any ideas or suggestions you have are more than welcome. Thank you so much, and we'll talk to you next month. See ya.